Tommel stood near the edge of his small garden, wiping sweat from his forehead. The sun was rising behind the green hills, and birds were singing. It was supposed to be another calm day on the outer colony of Alara 5, a peaceful human farming world. But then, something changed. A loud sound ripped through the sky. It was like thunder, but sharper. Tommel looked up and saw a fire streak of red and orange blazing across the clouds. It moved fast, spinning, falling. He narrowed his eyes. That was no meteor dot. It crashed into the nearby forest with a heavy boom. The ground shook under his boots. Dust rose high into the air, and birds flew away in panic. Without thinking, Tommel ran toward the crash. He grabbed his small toolkit before entering the trees. His heart was beating fast, not from fear, but from curiosity. Tommel had always loved machines, and this crash sounded like a ship, a strange one. The forest was thick and quiet now. Smoke floated through the air. After a few minutes of walking, Tommel found a trail of broken branches and scorched earth. And then he saw it. Half buried in the dirt and leaves was a small, silver ship. It had sharp wings and strange glowing lines across the hull. It looked different from any Earth design. One side was badly damaged, as if it had been shot. Tommel stepped closer, careful not to touch anything dangerous. The ship made a low humming sound. Lights blinked weakly on the surface. Then, with a sudden hiss, a small side door opened. Smoke poured out. Tommel backed away, holding his breath. Then he saw her. A tall figure fell out of the doorway and collapsed onto the ground. She wore dark armor, cracked and burnt in places. Her skin was pale gray with a soft shine, and her hair was short and silver. Tommel had never seen anyone like her before. An alien. Her eyes blinked open slowly, bright blue and sharp. She looked at him, trying to lift her arm, but it dropped. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Tommel knelt beside her. "It's okay," he said gently. "I'm not going to hurt you." She tried to speak again, this time barely whispering. "Help." Tommel nodded. "I will." Carrying her was not easy. She was tall and heavy, and her armor was still warm from the crash. But Tommel was strong, and determination pushed him forward. He brought her back to his workshop, a simple but neat space behind his home. It was full of tools, wires, old parts, and to repair tables. He laid her gently on one of the tables and checked her for injuries. There were burns on her arms and legs, and one side of her helmet was crushed. Her breathing was fast but steady. He took a deep breath. He needed to fix two things, her body and her armor. Tommel started by cleaning the wounds on her arms. Her blood was dark purple. He didn't know what was safe for her, so he used only water and soft cloth. Then, he removed a few small pieces of broken metal from her shoulder. She flinched once, but didn't wake up fully. "I hope your people forgive me for guessing," he said quietly as he worked. The next few hours passed in silence. Tommel focused on her armor. It was made of something strong and strange metal, but not like anything from Earth. Some of the parts were melted, others were cracked open. He opened a small panel on the chest plate and saw circuits glowing blue inside. "Advanced tech," he whispered. "Very advanced." He cleaned, bent, and slowly reshaped the metal. He used a laser cutter to remove the burnt pieces and replace them with parts from his workshop. It wasn't perfect, but he was careful, patient. Every move had to be slow and smart. By evening, she was still unconscious, but her breathing had slowed. Her chest rose and fell in a steady rhythm now. Tommel sat beside her, tired but curious. "Who are you?" he asked softly. "And what happened to you out there?" He looked at her face, so calm now. Her features were strong but gentle. Her eyes didn't open again, but he felt like she could hear him somehow. Night fell. Tommel stayed in the workshop, keeping watch. He didn't want to leave her alone. He brought a blanket and slept in the chair beside the repair table. The stars shone outside through the small window. In the middle of the night, he heard a soft sound. He opened his eyes and saw her moving slightly. Her hand twitched and her fingers curled. Then her eyes opened, bright, clear, and full of confusion. She looked around, breathing fast. Tamil raised his hands. You're safe. You're okay now. She looked at him, blinking slowly. Her voice was quiet and rough. You fix me. Tamil smiled gently. Not yet, but I'm working on it. She stared at him for a long moment, then closed her eyes again, this time not from weakness, but from rest. And in that moment, something changed. Tamil didn't know it yet, but this crash was not just a random accident. This alien visitor would bring a new chapter into his life, one full of learning, danger, trust, and something much deeper. He had fixed part of her armor that day, but soon he would start repairing something even more important. Her heart. Morning. Sunlight entered the workshop through the small window. Birds were singing outside. The smell of fresh grass mixed with the scent of metal and oil. Tamil was already awake. He sat at his work table, looking at the strange armor piece in his hands. It was smooth, silver, and shaped like a shoulder guard, but inside it had glowing blue wires and small moving parts. Nothing on Earth looked like this. He had stayed up most of the night studying it. Behind him, the alien girl Riva was still resting on the repair table. Her breathing was steady now. Tamil had cleaned her wounds and removed the damaged parts of her armor. She still wore the chest piece and one boot, but the rest was placed neatly beside her. Tamil picked up a small tool and tried to connect a power line inside the armor. A spark jumped out. Ow, he said, shaking his hand. Okay, you don't like that. He chuckled softly to himself. He liked fixing things. But this was different. This wasn't just a machine. This armor was part of her, and it felt like touching someone's story. An hour later, Riva opened her eyes again. She sat up slowly, blinking at the bright light and the unfamiliar room. Her hand moved to her side, then to her chest. She noticed the missing parts of her armor and tensed. Tamil turned around and quickly raised both hands. It's okay. You're safe here. Riva stared at him, alert and quiet. You removed my gear? Yes, Tamil said. It was broken. I tried to fix it. You were hurt. I didn't want to leave you like that. Riva looked at her arms. The burns had been treated. Her wounds were clean and covered. Her body still ached, but she could feel strength returning. She looked at Tamil again, this time with less fear. You're not a soldier. He shook his head. No, I'm just a repairman. My name is Tamil. Riva tilted her head. Tamil, she repeated, slowly. Tamil smiled. And you? She hesitated, then said, Riva. They looked at each other for a moment. Then Riva glanced around the workshop. She saw tools, wires, and old machine parts, nothing threatening. It was a strange place, but peaceful. Riva tried to stand. Her legs were weak, but she managed. Tamil rushed to help her, but she raised a hand. I can stand, she said firmly. Tamil stepped back. All right. Riva walked slowly around the room, looking at everything. She stopped near the window and stared outside. The view showed green hills, tall trees, and a blue sky with white clouds. This is Earth? Tamil shook his head. No, a colony planet. We call it Alara 5. It's quiet here. Riva didn't reply. Her mind was busy. The last thing she remembered was the battle in space, the enemy fire, her ship breaking apart, and then falling through the atmosphere. How long was I asleep? She asked. 2 days, Tamil said. You crashed near my farm. I found you in the forest. She nodded slowly. Then she turned to the table where her armor pieces were laid out. Tamil followed her. I tried fixing what I could. But your tech, it's way ahead of ours. Riva picked up a broken piece and studied it. You did well. Most wouldn't even dare touch this. Well, Tamil said, rubbing the back of his neck. I guess I'm not like most. For the first time, Riva gave a small smile, just a hint, but it faded quickly. Tamil brought her some water and soft bread. She sat on a chair and ate slowly, watching him as he worked on the chest plate. Why did you help me? She asked after a while. Tamil looked up, surprised. Because you needed it. My people do not trust easily, Riva said. We believe strangers bring danger. I understand. Tamil said. But I believe every broken thing can be fixed, sometimes even hearts. Riva didn't answer. She looked down at the food in her hands. For the next few days, Riva stayed in the workshop. She was quiet but calm. She asked many questions about Earth, about humans, about the colony. Tamil answered all of them with patience. He worked on her armor during the day and showed her how human tools worked. Riva watched him closely. She was impressed by how carefully he handled things, how focused he was. One day, he handed her a repaired arm piece. "I think this one's done," he said proudly. Riva examined it. The parts were clean and lined up. The inner circuits glowed. Faintly, "This is good," she said. "Very good," Tamil grinned. "Told you? I fix things." Riva looked at him. "Maybe, but you don't only fix metal." Tamil blinked. "What do you mean?" She didn't answer. She just looked away, as if she wasn't ready to say it yet. That evening, Riva walked with Tamil outside the workshop. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. The wind was soft, and the grass moved gently. "This world is quiet," she said. "Yes," Tamil replied. "Sometimes too quiet. Not for me," she said. "My world was never like this. Always training. Always missions. No peace." Tamil looked at her. "Maybe you were meant to find peace here." Riva looked at him again, but this time her eyes were softer. She nodded slowly, as if something inside her agreed. That night, back in the workshop, Riva picked up a tool and joined Tamil at the worktable. "You trust me with this?" she asked. "Of course," he said with a smile. "You're not just a soldier. You're a builder too." She looked at the tool in her hand, then back at him, and for the first time, Riva smiled without hiding it. The days passed gently. Riva stayed close to Tamil's workshop. Her wounds were healing, and her armor was slowly coming back together. But it wasn't just the body or the metal that was changing. Something inside her heart was also becoming lighter. She didn't say much, but she watched Tamil carefully, the way he moved with care, the way he talked kindly to his tools, like they were old friends. His hands were always busy, and his eyes always calm. He was nothing like the warriors she had grown up with. One morning, Riva picked up a small scanner from the bench. "What does this do?" she asked. Tamil looked over him. "That, it reads temperature and pressure inside machines. But I broke it last week." She pressed a few buttons, listened to the clicking sounds, then opened the small back panel. "Loose wire," she said. "Give me a moment." Tamil raised his eyebrows. "You fix things too?" Riva gave a small smile. "All very learn. Tech repairs. You can't win battles with broken weapons." He watched as her hands moved quickly. With skill, she closed the scanner, pressed a button, and the screen lit up. Tamil laughed. "You really are full of surprises." Riva looked pleased, though she tried not to show it. Later that day, Tamil took her to the colony market. The people there were simple folk farmers, traders, engineers. They stared when they saw Riva walk beside him in her half-repaired armor. Some were scared, others just curious. Riva stood tall but didn't speak. Tamil whispered, "Don't worry, they're just not used to visitors from the stars." A small girl came running toward them and stopped in front of Riva. She held out a blue flower with both hands. "For you," she said shyly. Riva knelt down. Her voice was quiet. "What is it?" "It's called sky bloom," the girl replied. "It only grows here." Riva took the flower gently. "Thank you." The girl smiled and ran off. Tamil grinned. "Looks like you made a friend." Riva looked at the flower for a long time. It was soft and bright, so different from her world. That night, they sat outside the workshop under the stars. The sky was full of light, and a cool breeze brushed through the trees. Riva looked up. "Do you ever miss Earth?" Tamil shook his head. "No, I was born here. My parents moved before I was born. This is home." Riva nodded. "My home was full of walls and war. You ever think of going back?" She paused. "I did. But not now." Tamil looked at her gently. "Why?" She turned toward him. "Because something here feels different." He smiled but didn't say anything. Their silence said more than words. The next day, they worked together on the chest plate of her armor. It was the most damaged part. Tamil used his human tools. and Riva added her knowledge of varying energy cores. As they worked side by side. They didn't speak much, but the quiet between them was not cold, it was warm and full of understanding. At one point, Tamil accidentally dropped a tool, and it rolled under the table. Riva laughed. You humans drop tools too often. Tamil grinned. We like to keep our hands busy. Riva handed him the tool. Then keep them steady. By the end of the day, the chest plate was repaired. The energy core glowed softly inside it. Riva touched the armor with care, then turned to Tamil. You fixed it. She said. We fixed it, he replied. She gave a nod. Yes, we. That evening, Riva sat by the window and stared at the stars. Tamil was nearby, fixing an old radio. Your people, they build a lot, she said. We do, Tamil replied. We build homes, machines, sometimes even friendships. On my planet, everything is about winning, power, rank. He looked at her. And what do you want? She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I'm starting to think I want what you have. Tamil smiled softly. Peace? She nodded. And trust. Later, as Tamil cleaned up the tools, Riva spoke again. You know, when I crashed, I thought I was dying. I thought you were too. Tamil admitted. You were in bad shape. Riva looked down. I never expected a human to help me. My people believe your kind is soft. Tamil chuckled. We are soft, but that's not always a bad thing. Riva met his eyes. No, it's not. For the first time, there was something deep in her voice. Not just strength, but warmth. That night, Riva couldn't sleep. She stood outside, holding the blue flower the little girl had given her. The petals glowed faintly under the moonlight. She remembered all the things her leaders had told her. Never trust outsiders. Never lower your guard. Never let emotion guide your choices. And yet, here she was, standing in peace, wearing armor that was fixed by kind hands, and holding a flower from a child who smiled. Riva looked at the workshop window, where Tamil was still inside, humming while he worked. Her chest felt strange. Not pain. Not fear. Something softer. Something new. Inside the workshop, Tamil glanced toward the door. He didn't know what Riva was thinking, but he knew this. She was no longer just an alien visitor. She was becoming something more. And though she hadn't said it, he could feel it in the way she looked at him. A silent bond had begun. The wind was soft that morning. Tamil was in the workshop, sorting through wires and old parts. He hummed the quiet tune, one he had learned from his mother long ago. It helped him think. He looked up and smiled when he saw Riva walk in. She looked stronger now. Her steps were firm. Her armor was almost fully repaired. Only the helmet and arm shield needed work. Good morning, he said. Riva nodded. The sky looks clear today. Tamil laughed. You're starting to sound like a local. She tilted her head. Is that good? Very good, he replied. They got to work without saying much more. Riva picked up the last piece of her arm shield. She studied it with focus while Tamil cleaned out a power converter. As the hours passed, the room filled with the quiet sound of tools, soft conversation, and the low hum of energy. But something else is growing in the air. Later that day, the power in the workshop flickered. Tamil frowned. That's strange. Riva stood and walked toward the small energy cell near the wall. She pressed a few buttons, and the lights turned off completely. Power loss, she said. Tamil nodded. Let's check the supply lines outside. They stepped out together. The sun was warm, and the breeze carried the scent of flowers from the nearby fields. As they followed the wires toward the solar panels, Riva looked around. Your world is very open, she said. Tamil smiled. It's not perfect, but we tried to keep it simple. No walls, no war. Riva was quiet for a moment. Then she said, My home has no flowers. Only metal towers and gray skies. That sounds cold. It is, she replied. They reached the power box. Tamil opened the panel and found a burned wire. Just a short, he said. Easy fix, as he worked. Riva sat on a nearby rock and watched him. He was focused, calm, and gentle even when the wire sparked. Do you always fix things with care? She asked. Tamil looked over his shoulder. Things last longer when you treat them with respect. She nodded slowly. No one ever fixed my armor with respect before. Tommel's hands paused for a second. Then he looked up. Maybe no one ever cared enough. Riva's eyes met his. The air between them changed warmer, quieter. She looked away first. I'll help carry the tools back. That evening, they sat under the large tree behind the workshop. It had wide branches and yellow leaves. The sunset painted the sky in orange and pink. Riva rested her back against the tree trunk and looked at the horizon. Do you ever feel lonely? She asked out to Mill picked at a blade of grass. Sometimes. But I don't mind silence. I used to think it meant something was missing. Now, I think silence lets us hear what matters. Riva closed her eyes. On my ship, silence meant danger. Tommel turned to her. And now? She opened her eyes and whispered. Now it feels safe. A soft moment passed between them. Riva looked at Tommel. Why do you live alone? My parents passed away a few years ago. He said gently. I stayed here to take care of the land. It's quiet, and I like to fix things. Machines don't lie. They just break. And hearts, she asked. He paused. Hearts are harder. But maybe they just need the right kind of repair. Riva looked down. Her voice was barely a whisper. What if a heart is full of battle scars? Tommel smiled softly. Then it just needs someone to see past them. She didn't answer. But her hand slowly curled around the piece of her helmet in her lap. That night, they returned to the workshop. Riva sat at the table while Tommel cleaned the last of the armor pieces. Your gear will be ready tomorrow, he said. Riva looked at him. And then I leave. Tommel stopped moving. He didn't say anything at first. Then he asked, do you want to? She looked down. I don't know. My mission failed. My ship is broken. My people might think I'm gone. You could stay, Tommel said, almost a whisper. Riva looked up sharply. Stay. Yes, if you want. She stood slowly and walked over to him. Her eyes searched his face. Why would you want me to stay? Tommel looked into her eyes. Because you're more than a soldier. You're smart, strong, kind, and because I like having you here. Riva's voice was quiet. No one ever said that to me. Then they didn't see the real you? There was silence between them, but it was soft, warm, full of meaning. Tommel reached for her hand. Slowly, gently, Riva didn't pull away. They stood like that in the middle of the quiet workshop, surrounded by tools and wires, machines, and broken parts, but nothing felt broken anymore. Her hand in his. Riva whispered, you fixed more than my armor, Tommel. He looked at her, his voice just as soft. You fixed something in me too. Outside, the stars began to shine and inside the small workshop on Alara 5. A bond stronger than metal began to glow quietly, gently, like a spark inside to healing hearts. The morning sun was warm and bright, but the quiet of the colony was broken by a strange sound. A ship appeared in the sky large and fast. It did not look like the small human ships that flew over Alara 5. Its shape was sharp and powerful, like the ones Riva had known in her past life. Tommel saw the ship from the workshop window. His heart beat faster. Riva, he called softly. There's something coming. Riva stood beside him, watching the sky with steady eyes. She knew this ship was a scout vessel from her own people, the Viren. They have found me, she said quietly. The scout ship landed not far from the colony. The doors opened with a hiss, and 3 Viren soldiers stepped out. Their armor was shiny and unbroken. Their eyes were cold and serious. Tommel felt tension in the air. Riva stepped forward. I did not expect you here. One of the soldiers spoke in a sharp voice. You are needed back. Your mission is not complete. Riva looked down for a moment, then back up. My mission ended when I chose a different path. The soldier's eyes narrowed. You are a traitor to your people. Riva said nothing. Tommel felt the weight of the moment. The soldiers looked at him with suspicion. Who's this human? One asked. Riva answered quietly. He saved me. He fixed me. He showed me kindness. The soldiers exchanged cold looks. One said, humans are weak. You should not trust them. Riva's voice Grew firm, or trust is not weakness. The leader of the Viren stepped closer to Riva. You will return with us, he ordered. Riva shook her head. No, I will not go back to war. The soldiers looked shocked. You will obey, the leader said. Riva looked at Tamil, then back at the soldiers. I'm no longer your soldier, she said. I choose my own path. Tamil moved closer to Riva. You don't have to go if you don't want to. The leader of the soldiers laughed softly. You think a human can protect you from the Viren? Tamil's eyes narrowed. It's not about protection. It's about choice. Tension grew. The soldiers prepared to take Riva by force, but something stopped them. Riva stood tall, her repaired armor shining softly in the sunlight. Her eyes were clear and strong. I'm done with war, she said. I have found peace here, and I will defend it. The leader of the Viren hesitated. Tamil stepped forward. This colony is peaceful. We don't want fights, but if you force this, it will not end well for anyone. For a long moment, the soldiers looked at each other. Finally, the leader spoke. You are making a mistake, Riva replied calmly. Maybe, but it is my choice. The soldiers turned and boarded their ship. The doors closed with a hiss, and the ship lifted into the sky. Tamil and Riva watched until it disappeared into the clouds. Riva let out a long breath. They will not give up easily. Tamil placed a hand on her shoulder. Neither will we. That evening, back at the workshop, Riva and Tamil sat together. I never thought I would choose peace over duty, Riva said softly. Tamil smiled. Sometimes the hardest battles are inside us. Riva looked at him, her eyes shining. You gave me a choice, and you made it your own, Tamil said. They sat quietly, the stars shining outside the window. For the first time, Riva felt hope, not just for herself, but for a future she could build. The morning light came slowly through the window of the small workshop. Outside, the world was quiet, but inside, a storm was growing in Riva's heart. She stood by the workbench, her repaired armor gleaming softly in the light. Tamil was fixing a broken radio nearby. They had shared many moments since the arrival of the Viren scouts, but now everything felt more serious. Riva's thoughts were full of questions. She had made her choice to stay with Tamil in this peaceful colony, but the call of her people was still strong. Duty and loyalty tugged at her soul. She knew the Viren would not stop trying to bring her back. The soldiers saw her as a traitor, but in her heart, she felt she was simply choosing a new way. Tamil looked up from the radio. You've been quiet all morning. What's on your mind? Riva turned to him slowly. I must speak to them. The Viren. One last time. Tamil frowned. Are you sure? They came with force. It could be dangerous. She nodded. I have to try. If I can explain my choice, maybe they will understand. Maybe. Tamil stood and came closer. You're not alone. Riva gave a small smile. I know. Together, they prepared to send a message. Using her knowledge of Viren technology, Riva connected the colony's long-range communicator to her repaired armor systems. The blue lights flickered softly as she adjusted the frequencies. Tamil watched in silence. He did not fully understand her language, but he saw the determination in her eyes. After several minutes, a signal was sent. The reply came quickly. A single voice spoke clearly in Riva's native tongue. It was the Viren commander, the same leader who had come with the scout ship, Riva. His voice was cold but calm. Why do you refuse to obey? She took a deep breath and answered honestly. Because I have seen a better way. War only brings pain. Here, I found kindness, peace, hope. The commander's voice softened for a moment. You speak of things unknown to many Viren, but duty is not so simple. I understand, Riva replied, but duty must change with the world. I will not fight when there is peace to build. There was silence on the line. Then the commander said, if you do not return, you will be considered lost to the Viren forever. Riva's heart tightened. I accept, she said firmly, because I am no longer who I was. Tamil placed a hand on her shoulder. Whatever happens, I'm here. Days passed. The colony was calm, but Riva felt the weight of her choice every moment. She helped Tamil fix machines and build new tools for the people. Her strength and skill amazed the colonists. They began to trust her, not just as a warrior, but as a friend. But inside, Riva was learning something new. She was learning to heal. One evening, as the sun set, Tamil and Riva sat beneath the old tree outside the workshop. Riva looked at her hands, scarred and strong. Your people fought many battles, Tamil said softly, but you don't have to be a warrior forever. She smiled. I am more than a soldier now. Because of you, Tamil's eyes shone. And because of you, I believe in new beginnings. They sat quietly, watching the stars appear. The Varian did not return. Riva knew they still watched from far away, waiting and watching. But she no longer feared them, because here, with Tamil and the colony, she had found something stronger than war. She had found a new home. The sun rose slowly over the hills of Alara 5. Golden light touched the green fields, the tall trees, and the quiet colony. Birds flew in the soft morning breeze. Everything felt peaceful, calm, like the world itself was taking a deep breath. Inside the small workshop, Riva stood at the window, looking out at the sky. Her armor was fully repaired now. Every piece had been fixed by steady hands, Tamil's hands, and each part now held a different meaning. Once, her armor was only for battle. Now, it reminded her of healing, trust, and something even deeper. She turned and saw Tamil at the workbench, humming quietly while fixing a solar battery. You never stop working, she said with a smile. Tamil looked up and grinned. I like to keep busy. These old batteries don't fix themselves. Riva stepped closer. I want to help, not just with machines, but with the colony, with everything. Tamil put down the tool and looked at her. You already do. People here like you, they respect you. Riva nodded. I want to stay, Tamil, if that's all right. His smile grew warm. It's more than all right. That day, Riva walked through the colony with Tamil. The people greeted her with smiles. Children waved at her. Farmers offered fresh fruit. A few even asked her to help fix tools and machines. Riva knelt beside a broken water pump and used her skills to repair the valve. When the water started flowing again, the small crowd clapped and cheered. Tamil watched from a distance. His heart was full. Riva was no longer a visitor. She was part of this place now. Later, at sunset, Tamil and Riva sat under the tree near the workshop, the same spot where they had shared many quiet talks. The sky was orange and soft. A warm breeze moved through the leaves. Riva held something in her hands. It was a round metal badge, the battle mark from her Varian armor. It once showed her rank, her victories, her life as a soldier. Now, it felt like a memory from another time. She looked at Tamil and opened her hand. I want you to have this, she said. Tamil took the badge gently. Are you sure? Riva nodded. This was once a symbol of my past, but now it belongs to someone who gave me a future. Tamil looked at her with deep emotion. I didn't fix you, Riva. You fixed yourself. I just gave you space to be free. She smiled. But you believed in me when I didn't know who I was. Their eyes met. The wind grew quiet, and in that moment, without any words, something passed between them, stronger than armor, deeper than duty. It was something soft, something true. The next morning, Riva stood beside Tamil at the new workshop they were building. Together, it was larger than the old one, made of strong wood and smooth metal, with room for both of them to work side by side. Riva held a welding torch while Tamil guided the beam. They worked as a team, laughing, learning, and creating. Children from the colony watched them and asked questions. Riva answered kindly, even letting one child press a button on the machine. You're good with kids, Tamil said later. Riva looked surprised. I never thought I would hear that. Tamil chuckled. People change. She looked around at the workshop, the fields, the bright sky above them. Yes, she said softly. People change, even warriors. One night, as the stars filled the sky, Riva stood alone outside, looking up. She thought about her people, the Viren. She didn't know if they would ever understand her choice. Maybe one day they would. Maybe they wouldn't, but she no longer feared their judgment. Her journey had started with a crash, full of fire and fear. But it had led her here to peace, to purpose, and to something she never thought she'd find: love. Tamil joined her outside and stood beside her quietly. "The stars are bright tonight," he said. Riva nodded. "Yes, but I don't need to follow them anymore." Tamil smiled. "Why not?" "Because I've already found what I was looking for." He looked at her, his heart full. And Riva, once a warrior of metal and silence, leaned gently against him, her armor soft with light. Not just repaired but transformed. The end.